Welcome to my garden. This is my first attempt as a medical marijuana grower. I have picked up 2 patients. I wasn't going to do 4. I was going to put in 24 plants. This barn, there's 2 barns here, one end to end. I have over 200 feet to work with, about 12 feet wide, 14 feet wide. And so I decided it was a little easier on myself. I'll just go with 2 this year. So I'm doing growing for 2 patients. So that's 6 each, total of 12. And I managed to sneak my tomato plants in, and they're actually doing really well. I've got a late start, so the harvest won't be nearly what we would normally expect. I'm starting at least almost a month and a half late. So, but we'll still have a good deal of what we do have. I've got 9 in the ground right now, and I've got 2 more I'm going to put in today. The first 2 we come across these are cherry pie. These were given to me, and I've been told that's a really good strain, so I'm anxious to see how that turns out. And then that one is a blackberry kush. And that one I've forgotten. I'd have to look at my list, which I don't have with me. And by the way, while we're still in this end of the garden, I wanted to point out part of my security system. The only neighbors we have to worry about is there's a farm on our east side, and they have some workers. And so the plant right now, I'm sure they don't know what's going on here, but as they get taller, they might get the idea if they see them. The owner of the property knows about the garden and had no problem with it. He was a little concerned about theft too, but he had no problem with the garden. So that's the only neighbor that's close to it. He can't be seen from the road. But anyway, what we're doing is I'm letting the berries grow. In fact, when I water my plants, I make sure the berries get a good watering too, because I'm having them grow in, less chance somebody should come in through there. So we moved into the, let's see, I guess we moved north and up into the middle of the garden. I wanted to talk about this plant. We have 2 of them that are just about the same size. This is a strain called Blue Magoo, and again, I've never had any experience with it, but I'm told it's a really, really good strain. And the friend that gave me these 2 is an excellent grower and real patient advocate, and really into this whole medical marijuana thing. I mean, so anyway, I'm anxious to see how that turns out. I was given 4 lemon sour diesel plants, but they were just so small that they were just really too small for me. And so I traded him those 2 for some plants he gave me, and so I'm anxious to see what he does with those. He should have some really good medicine from those. And then the other 2 plants I gave to a friend that's growing for another patient. So that's what it's all about. If we can work together, exchange plants around. 6 of my plants I ended up paying for them. They wanted 60, but I whined and I got them for 50. So that's the only ones that I had to pay for. The rest of them were given to me, and that's how, of course, we'd like to see, and patients working together. There's some great groups out there, Oregon Green Free, that you can join and meet other growers, networking, what it's all about. And I tell people all the time, if you're looking for sources, you just got to get out and beat the bushes and get into some of these groups. You pick up my flyer, my Just Say No flyer, KNOW, Just Say No. I have a list of nonprofit groups that are helping patients, and we've got a pretty good law, but we don't have, well, up until the dispensary started up, we didn't have any kind of distribution system. But dispensaries are great. They provide incredible service, especially with the testing. You can go in and know that your herb that you're looking at is bug-free, free everything you don't want. And then I also can tell you what some of the percentages of THC and CBD and the rest of it. So it's an incredible service, and it's there for people that need it. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll move down to the end of the garden here. We'll move one more time, and we'll be right back.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. in clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberties, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
So here we are at the north end of what is currently my garden. Next year hopefully it'll be twice as big, and we'll be on up to the other end. But right now this is the end of our garden. So, and this is what I've done is I've staggered the holes. So I've got 2 rows of 6 plants, and then they're staggered so that they give each other room. And again, I forgot the strain of this one, but it's in my list, which I don't have my holder right now. But anyway, it's doing really well. It's probably my 3rd biggest that I've got, and I'm using a mixture of steer manure, composting soil, potting soil, and sand. You want garden sand, be sure it's not ocean sand. It's got to be garden sand. And I mix it equal parts, and so I mix them together in a little cement mixer I have. It takes 3.5 of those just to fill 1 hole. And by the way, the holes are 12 inches in diameter and 2.5 feet deep. I rented a postal digger, and a friend of mine helped me, and for $40 we put in 12 holes, and it was well worth the money. This is pretty well tramped down by the horses for 15 years walking up and down this, and so it was pretty compacted. So that's another reason why the postal digger was a good investment. The first 12 inches was one heck of a grind. I mean, literally, we were grinding down through the 12 inches, both of us leaning on it. And but it was interesting. When you hit about 12 inches deep, all of a sudden that auger, you could just feel it. It just started traveling on its own. It was a lot softer. And once you pulled the auger out, you could actually see about 12 inches of just compacted dirt. But it's really nice looking soil. It's very dark, and it seemed to be really good soil. Not getting hardly any rocks. Usually when I dig on this property, I always come up with abundance of rocks, but found very few, interestingly, very few. So it's just, of course, good news. I always called this pasture out here we have magic rocks. You walk out into the pasture and you won't see a single rock, and you come out the next day and you'll see a rock, and there was not one there yesterday. All of a sudden here's a rock, and I like to call it magic, but actually I think what it is, I'm positive what it is that there is a lot of rock in the soil, and through time, as the horses go walk around the pasture, they compact the soil, and so as the soil is compacted down, these rocks end up coming up. Now why they come from visible to there, I don't know, but I'm sure that's where they're coming from. But anyway, so that's the garden, and we're going to do some footage later and see how they're doing at a later date, so we'll keep track of how they're doing. Hopefully I'll have it a little weeded a little better. But I have to keep a happy medium between weeding and keeping my security system on the east side here intact. But and by the way, the gates on the ends aren't done yet. I'm going to put some dog cyclone dog panels and possibly some concertina wire across the top. I'm not sure yet, but we don't anticipate a big problem, but you never know. It'll probably be where it'll keep, as they say, keep honest people honest. If somebody's really intent on getting in, they'll probably figure it out, but hopefully somebody will hear them by then. So anyway, I hope to we'll come out and show you how it's progressing. Not sure the time frame, but when you come back, you can see it. Thanks. So these are our 2 latest residents, I guess, of my garden. These I believe they're called chocolate Thai, and these two were started from seed. So it'll be interesting to see how they work compared to the other plants, which are all from cuttings. And they're real healthy, so once we get them into the ground, and I think the roots will take off and see what we're doing. But at least we've got a lot headed starts in some of these other plants that we've got. And that'll, with these two in the ground, that'll put me at 11. So I've still got one more to go. And this is TWA, which, and I can't remember what TWA stands for, but some of you out there will probably recognize it. And it's a great plant, but again, it's pretty small, so if I have to, I'll use it. But in the meantime, I'm still looking for another plant about this size, and I'll pass this one on if I find it. So I probably won't put this in the ground yet today, but it's going to go. It's got to go. So that's the project today, is getting these two in the ground, and we'll show you how we mix the soil. All right, so now I'll show you how I mix the dirt. Next year, I hope to get a little cement mixer, a little electric-powered cement mixer. But this year, this is what I had. It's a small. It's called a quick concrete and mortar mixer. Basically, it's kind of like a 5-gallon bucket, just a little bit bigger. And it's got the paddles on the inside. So as you turn it, that'll have to mix everything up. So I put 2 scoops of each component in the bucket alternately. Sometimes I can put a little extra in. You got to leave enough room for it to mix, so you can't get too greedy and put too much in. Now it's ready to mix, so now we'll show you how we mix it.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East. For centuries prior to about 1850, all the ships that sailed the western seas were rigged with hempen rope and sails. For the sailor, no less than the hangman, hemp was indispensable. A 44-gun frigate, like our cherished old Ironsides, took over 60 tons of hemp for rigging, including an anchor cable 25 inches in circumference. The Conestoga wagons and prairie schooners of pioneer days were covered with hempen canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp. In those days, hemp was an important crop in Kentucky and Missouri. Then came cheaper imported fibers for cordage, like jute, sisal, and manila hemp, and the culture of hemp in America declined. But now, with Philippine and East Indian sources of hemp in the hands of the Japanese, and shipment of jute from India curtailed, American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers, at the government's request, planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand%. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp. In Kentucky, much of the seed hemp acreage is on river bottom land such as this, along the Kentucky River Gorge. Some of these fields are inaccessible except by boat. Thus, plans are afoot for a great expansion of the hemp industry as a part of the war program. This film is designed to tell farmers how to handle this ancient crop, now little known outside Kentucky and Wisconsin. This is hemp seed. Be careful how you use it. For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract. Ask your AAA committeeman or your county agent about it. Don't forget, hemp demands a rich, well-drained soil such as is found here in the bluegrass region of Kentucky or in central Wisconsin. It must be loose and rich in organic matter. Poor soils won't do. Soil that will grow good corn will usually grow hemp. Hemp is not hard on the soil. In Kentucky, it has been grown for several years on the same ground, though this practice is not recommended. A dense and shady crop, hemp tends to choke out weeds. Here's a Canada thistle that couldn't stand the competition. Dead as a dodo. Thus, hemp leaves the ground in good condition for the following crop. For fiber, hemp should be sown 5 pecks to the acre. With drill, the closer the rows, the better. These rows are spaced about 4 inches. This hemp has been broadcast. Either way, it should be sown thick enough to grow a slender stalk. Here's an ideal stand. The right height to be harvested easily, thick enough to grow slender stalks that are easy to cut and process. Stalks like these here on the left, they yield the most fiber and the best. Those on the right are too coarse and woody. For seed, hemp is planted in hills like corn, sometimes by hand. Hemp is a dioecious plant. The female flower is inconspicuous, but the male flower is easily spotted. In seed production, after the pollen has been shed, these male plants are cut out. These are the seeds on a female plant. Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult, which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. A modified rice binder has been used to some extent. This machine works well in average hemp. Recently, the improved hemp harvester, used for many years in Wisconsin, has been introduced in Kentucky. This machine spreads the hemp in a continuous swath. It is a far cry from this fast and efficient modern harvester to the Armstrong model of yore. But here's one kind of harvester, at least, that doesn't stall in the heaviest hemp. In Kentucky, hand cutting is practiced in opening fields for the machines. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall. In Wisconsin, hemp is harvested in September. Here, the hemp harvester with automatic spreader is standard equipment. Note how smoothly the rotating apron lays the swath preparatory to retting. Here it is a common and essential practice to leave headlands around hemp fields. These strips may be planted to other crops, preferably small grain. Thus, the harvester has room to make its first round without preparatory hand cutting. Here the machine is running over corn stubble. When the cutter bar is much shorter than the hemp is tall, overlapping occurs. Not so good for retting. The standard cut is 8 to 9 feet. The length of time hemp is left on the ground to ret depends on the weather. The swaths must be turned to get a uniform ret. When the woody core breaks away readily, like this, the hemp is about ready to take up and bind into bundles. Well-retted hemp is light to dark gray. The fiber tends to pull away from the stalk. The presence of stalks in the bowstring stage indicates that retting is well underway. When hemp is short or tangled, or when the ground is too wet for machines, it is bound by hand. A wooden buck is used. Twine will do for tying, but the hemp itself makes a good band. When conditions are favorable, the pickup binder is commonly used. The swaths should lie smooth and even with stalks parallel. The picker won't work well in tangled hemp. After binding, hemp is shocked as soon as possible to stop further retting. In 1942, 14,000 acres of fiber hemp were harvested in the United States. The goal for 1943 is 300,000 acres. Thus, hemp, Cannabis sativa, the old standby cordage fiber, is staging a strong comeback. This is Kentucky hemp going into the dryer of a mill at Versailles. In the old days, breaking was done by hand, one of the hardest jobs known to man. Now the power breaker makes quick work of it. Spinning American hemp into rope yarn or twine in the old Kentucky River Mill at Frankfort, Kentucky. Another pioneer plant that has been making cordage for more than a century. All such plants will presently be turning out products spun from American-grown hemp. Twine of various kinds for tying, winding armatures, and upholsterers' work. Rope for marine rigging and towing, for hay forks, derricks, and heavy-duty tackle. Light-duty fire hose. Thread for shoes for millions of American soldiers. And parachute webbing for our paratroopers. As for the United States Navy, every battleship requires 34,000 feet of rope, and other craft accordingly. So here in the Boston Navy Yard, where cables for frigates were made long ago, crews are now working night and day making cordage for the fleet. In the old days, rope yarn was spun by hand. Today, even the rope walk is mechanized. 160 fathoms to go. The rope yarn feeds through holes in an iron plate. This is Manila hemp from the Navy's rapidly dwindling reserve. When that is gone, American hemp will go on duty again. Hemp for mooring ships, hemp for tow lines. Hemp for tackle and gear. Hemp for countless naval uses, both on ship and shore. Just as in the days when old Ironside sailed the seas victorious, with her hempen shrouds and hempen sails. Hemp for victory.
Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? You see? And we check that and we can't find, we just see them just say, no, you mustn't use it because it make you rebel.